Hey, told you this would get done, didn't I? Here it is. My list of the top 6 Legend of Zelda games. This is a no-brainer, but my list is obviously not law, and you're bound to disagree with me, and that's totally cool. Pretty much every Zelda game is awesome, and I think they're all deserving of a spot on anyone's list. Now, let's take a look-see, shall we? Number 6. To start off the list, we have Twilight Princess. Now, before you go freaking out in the comments, let me just say that I don't hate Twilight Princess. I actually like the game a whole lot. The only reason it's not higher on this list is because I got bored of it about halfway through, and the wolf sections were a chore. The repetition didn't bother me too much though, and I did have a lot of fun in the dungeons. But Arbiter's Grounds and Lakebed Temple stood out most to me as some personal favorites. While the world was a little plain, I found riding around on Epona to be very enjoyable, and finding a few of the hidden secrets throughout was great. The story was interesting and added a lot to the Zelda lore we had set. Like I said before though, one of the major issues is I thought it got a little boring about halfway through. All in all, Twilight Princess was by no means a bad game, and I do like it. Number 5. Skyward Sword. What? Skyward Sword was the worst! Motion control! Hey. Hold your horses there. Skyward Sword for me was an enjoyable game from start to finish. Although it somewhat broke Zelda's standard of having individual worlds that you visit by themselves, I thought each area had a nice design and feel to it, especially the main hub of Skyloft, which I thought was very cool. It felt like an actual town that people lived in and felt very much alive. The motion controls never seemed to not work for me, and the only trouble I had was flying my Loftwing for the first time. That's another little negative. I wish they'd given you more to do or see while flying your Loftwing. But other than that, I thought the bosses were pretty good, even though some of them were really hit or miss. The story, however, was the best in a Zelda game to date, and was one we really needed told. I find Skyward Sword fully deserving of spot number 5. Number 4, Majora's Mask. And yeah, only at number 4, and yeah, I'm aware how blasphemous this is. I don't even really deserve to call myself a fan. I really wanted Majora's Mask to be higher, but it's about this point on the list where it got especially hard to choose the top 4. They were all pretty close, but I had to rank them somehow. There's a lot to say about this game, and I'm not sure I'll be able to do it all justice, so let's hit the high points. This, possibly even more so than Breath of the Wild, is the most interactive world in the series. Throughout Link's 3-day tenure in Termina, the player can change and manipulate events that will affect the outcome of the story to a degree. It's through this that the NPCs we interact with have characters of their own. It really helps what I think Eiji Aonuma was going for with this one, where Link has been transported into their world, rather than the NPCs being a part of Link's world. It's also worth a mention that this game handles some darker and more mature topics and the underlying themes, and definitely much more emotional. It's because of this that Majora's Mask feels like a side story more so than a main installment. That only adds to the tone and feeling of it. Majora's Mask is very unique for the series, and the best way to experience it is really just to play it for yourself. Number 3, Wind Waker. Wind Waker was an all-around win in my book. The cel-shaded graphics look great, especially on the HD version. While cartoony, I like the art style of the game. It has a different feel from the other titles, making it unique. The gameplay was great also. I think it had top-notch combat, what with the striking system and such. The sailing did get a little tedious, but as soon as you get the enhanced sail in the HD version, there was almost no bother at all. There was a lot to find while seafaring. I think pre-Breath of the Wild, Wind Waker was the most open-world 3D Zelda. The dungeons were simple, but I thought well designed. The bosses were a little underwhelming, but not too much so. Who could forget the first fight with Goma? And especially the final boss fight with Ganondorf. That's another plus. The game's story was great. Not a Skyward Sword, but definitely good. Its Ganondorf also happened to be one of my favorite depictions of the king. And you might know a little well-known fact about me is Ganondorf is my favorite character. Wind Waker is very much a classic and one of the best Zelda games ever made. Number 2, Breath of the Wild. You know you were successful when 2017 isn't even over yet, and a lot of people are already calling you Game of the Year. Breath of the Wild was a departure from recent installments in the series, and I loved every minute of it. From the combat, to the side quests, to the characters, to the outfits, all of it. It's hard to define what made Breath of the Wild so great to me, but I can safely say it's deserving of this spot. The gameplay was near perfect for an open-world adventure game, and it's the only Zelda where I completed every side quest and found every shrine during my first playthrough. Not all those Korok seeds, though. Anyway, the only thing I found it lacking in was the story, and I understand why it had to be done this way and respect it. Though it's not like the story was bad either. and I found myself connected to champions like Mipha. The game also had the best version of Princess Zelda to date. Overall, Breath of the Wild is easily not only one of the best Zeldas, but possibly one of the best games ever made. Number 1. Ocarina of Time. I'm gonna be honest with you, this was a biased choice, as some might be able to tell, and will criticize me for. But many will also tell you that Ocarina of Time is the most solid in the series, and I completely agree with them. While it was the first 3D Zelda game, its gameplay and combat still hold up. There's a reason why Zeldas since have always used it as a base, and I always found myself having fun while playing it. The gameplay was enriched, though, by the game's epic story. Remember how I raved about Wind Waker and Skyward Sword's stories? Well, those are both a sequel and a prequel to Ocarina's story respectively. Ocarina of Time also depicts my favorite Ganondorf, the version where he is young and cunning, while also depicting my favorite incarnation of Link, the Hero of Time, potentially the most important character in the grand scheme of Zelda lore. There's a reason this game's story was entwined with pretty much every entry in the series after it, and even partially in A Link to the Past, which came before it. Ocarina was a prequel itself to that game. Ocarina of Time has solid gameplay, a stellar story, and set the tone for the series entering the 3D era of gaming. It was the first Zelda game I ever played, and it's 100% deserving of spot number 1 on my list of the top 6 Legend of Zelda games. Well, what did you guys think? Did you agree with my list? Sound off in the comment section below. Thanks for watching, everyone. Up, up, and away. Peace out. Oh, and happy Zelda month. Even though it's kinda late.